All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Max Barr previewing Wednesday night's matchups in SEC basketball, as it will be Ole Miss heading to Auburn, Vandy heading to A&M, Kentucky at Oklahoma, Texas at Arkansas. Got some big bubble games here, Max, when you look at these bubble teams. So let's jump in. Start with Ole Miss at Auburn, 6 p.m. Central Time, ESPN2 game. The Tigers, as we know, continue their winning ways, even though some people seem to think that, boy, Auburn's just really, not exactly the team they used to be. I've heard a little bit out there. Yeah, that's if you're saying that about a team that's 25-2 and has, only lost one game since December the 4th, then yeah, that's telling you kind of the season that Auburn has put together. But sure, you could say, 67-60 win against Arkansas was close for a bit. Game against Georgia was close for a bit. They wind up winning that one 82-70. And now they play an Ole Miss team that, well, has not exactly been playing their best basketball over the past couple weeks. Back-to-back losses to Mississippi State and Vanderbilt. Games before that, they sort of snuck away with wins at LSU and at South Carolina. So, Max, we'll see if Ole Miss can get back on track here and play a bit better. Of course, these two did play on February 1st, not long ago. Auburn went in, won by 10, and Oxford 92-82. Auburn goes 14 of 28 from three in that game and sort of dominated the glass. And Ole Miss, on the other hand, got to the free throw line quite a bit, 35 times, went 24 of 35, but just could not sort of put it together to pull off the upset in Oxford.
We all picked Auburn the first time around, right? Like nobody
I was,
tried to
I looked back at my notes, and it seems that someone did not pick Auburn. We're going to see if that trend continues here in this particular matchup.
I can't imagine not picking a 25-2 team. I don't know who would do such a thing. However, I would like to start with Blake. I've got the feeling something this slate. I've just got the weird feeling that something's up.
I was thinking the same thing this morning before we started recording. I was like, this midweek slate to me, especially like the Tuesday night slate, we said there are some tricky games for some of these top, rated teams. But this one in particular on Wednesday, I was thinking the same thing. I don't know if it's going to be this game, but this one has kind of a weird feel to it, perhaps.
It just kind of feels like it's a weird midweek, kind of sandwiched in between like a big push that was just all throughout February, and now March is right on the horizon. It's just like this weird little late February midweek where all these games are like -8, -10. It's just something's gonna happen. Is it gonna happen in this one? We'll find out with our picks, but I don't think so. Ole Miss has not been playing their best basketball. You rewind a month ago, and we were talking about this team like we'd love them for an Elite Eight. It's so hard to score on them. You can't reverse the ball. They are going to steal it if you try to skip past it. The same magic has not been there for Ole Miss. And on the road, they have been extremely shaky. Since that Alabama 10-point win, Ole Miss, they lost on the road, Mississippi State, lost on the road, Missouri, and then should have lost on the road to LSU, beat South Carolina by 4, and then lost to Vandy. They really have not put together since that Alabama road game. Everyone has kind of, okay, Ole Miss is coming to town. Look what they did to Alabama in the beginning of conference season, and they have not taken the Rebels lightly whatsoever, have not looked like the same team on the road as they did earlier in the season, Blake.
Yeah, it is interesting with them right now. I think one of the things, if you want to just look statistically, they've not shot the ball as well. I think that's definitely something that stood out in 3 of their last 4 games. 6 of 23 at LSU, 26%. 6 of 24 against Mississippi State, that was 25%. And then 9 of 28 against Vanderbilt for 32%. They did get the 8 of 13 in there at South Carolina, which is, of course, 62%. But I don't know. I think early in the season we were looking at this team and wondering, okay, kind of the numbers and the percentages, especially with their perimeter shooting, which, again, is not bad. They're shooting 35% on the year, but they haven't shot it as well as of late. That's made it a little bit more difficult, I think, at times because, overall, like we mentioned, it's just you're going to get guarded in different ways in some of these games against SEC teams. And I thought the biggest one was the Mississippi State game, right? Because we always bring up the perimeter numbers defensively from Mississippi State and how they give up a ton of threes That just didn't happen in that game. So I'm curious to see if they can. If you're going to beat Auburn on the road, right? You're going to have to make shots. Like you're going to have to make shots from the perimeter, probably. And so Auburn, as we know, top 10 in the country in defending, in 3-point defense. So that is something that I'm very curious to see if Ole Miss can kind of get back on track there with that. But, elsewhere too, I think something we brought up this season, these teams are completely different in terms of like the second chance opportunities. Auburn is a great offensive rebounding team. Ole Miss is not. They just don't grab a ton of offensive rebounds. If you look at the percentages, if you want to see the gap, just in conference play, I'm doing the filter in KenPom. Auburn, 35.2% offensive rebounding percentage. That's third in the SEC. Ole Miss, 21.5%, which is last in the SEC. So if you're a team that's trying to go on the road, you haven't been making shots as of late, you're not getting as many of those second chance opportunities, then you're trying to figure out, okay, what kind of magic do we have to work here, and what is the actual plan that's going to get us a victory? And that's where it gets a little bit harder.
I think it's quite literally making shots, because you look at the free throw line also. That's been a angle that people have been able to take advantage of with Auburn. And just thinking back to last game, Cardwell was in foul trouble. You've gotten some games where Auburn has some bigs in foul trouble. Ole Miss really not one of the teams in the SEC that gets to the line too much. 10th right now in the conference and getting to the line in SEC play. So I don't see Ole Miss taking advantage of that. If they're not going to get too many second chance opportunities, the two angles Ole Miss can try to exploit. They got, well, not even exploit, but they got to hit shots, and then they got to try to turn over Auburn. Auburn's been pretty dang good at taking care of the ball. However, Ole Miss, who knows? They're going to be playing desperate, probably pressure defense right from the start. I think that's it. They got to do it with their defense, get Auburn out of position, then maybe some open threes come up in transition. Guys are out of line, but we're really picking apart little areas for Ole Miss that they got to just have A+ games in to be able to win this one.
All right. Are you going to do it for a second time this season?
Could you imagine?
Could you imagine? And what if you got the South Carolina, Texas one right. Maybe this is your chance. Like, you know what? Just go all in. Go all in here.
If you are out there and you're picking the Rebels here, more power to you, because I don't know what you're seeing. You might be seeing the future. Give me Auburn here.
As Winston Churchill once said, Max, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. You have learned from your previous pick, and you're going to go with the Auburn Tigers. I think I will as well. If you look at the series history between these two recently, I think Auburn has won, what is it now, 7th straight, I believe, in this series dating back to 2021. So, the Tigers have been pretty good in winning matchups against Ole Miss. And like you said, I think this just comes down to, can they make shots? And it's just going to be tough. The other thing, too, is trying to force turnovers, but we've mentioned Auburn does a good job taking care of the ball. So, I just think matchup-wise, this is one that seems to lean in Auburn's favor. But you never know. With a Chris Beard defensive team, they could just try to make this a Georgia-type game a little bit there. Maybe some Arkansas to it. So, we'll see. But, I'm going to pick Auburn in this particular spot. All right. Vanderbilt at Texas A&M, 6 p.m. Central, SEC Network. This is one where we know Vanderbilt is a team that just came off of a huge win against Ole Miss. And now, if you look at some of the updated bracketologies, I've seen some people move Vanderbilt up all the way to a 9 seed, which is significant when you get a win like that. And so I think that is something that we certainly look at now and wonder, okay, Vanderbilt in a really good spot. This isn't the kind of loss that's going to hurt you, as long as you don't lose by 30 or something, which we have seen the Commodores do in that game at Oklahoma, but kind of somewhat been the outlier. I know they lost by 21 at Kentucky, but remember, they played well in that first half, really, a decent chunk of the game against Tennessee. Didn't play bad, thought at Florida. A couple other games like that this season. They've been right there. But, Max, we always say, sometimes teams are different on the road than they are at home, and, the Commodores still kind of searching for some of that winning success on the road right now. Meanwhile, A&M coming off a home loss to Tennessee, and you just kind of know the Aggie formula right now. We know what they're going to kind of do and the game plan they're going to implement here. So I'm fascinated by this one from a matchup standpoint. Because these are two teams that just feel very different in terms of how they win games. So,
Yep. Wade Taylor coming off his first home loss of the year. So and he did not play well in that game. So you know that he's probably going to be extra focused and just kind of pissed off with his last performance. And he's not going to have an easy one going against this Vanderbilt scrappy backcourt defense who ranks fourth in the SEC in turnover rate and steal rate. So that was a big issue for A&M over just the past 2 games. I know they just played the number one defense in the nation in Tennessee, so not too easy of a task. But the turnover monster came back to bite them again. They had done a really good job in the beginning of conference play, coming off the non-conference where they did not do good turning the ball over. They were really good in the beginning of conference play, taking care of the ball, especially when Wade Taylor went out. They really slowed the offense even more down, and they limited those turnovers. Came back to bite them here in the losses. So first thing I want to watch is how does Wade Taylor respond from the game? How does Zurich Phelps respond? He had way too many turnovers last game because Blake, this is an underrated. I've been talking about Chris Mignon, but also your guy Tyler Tanner. This is a scrappy Vandy team.
One of your favorite stats with Vandy is their 3-point defense and the fact that that has been their Achilles heel. Teams just shoot the ball so well against them. I present to you the Texas A&M 3-point make total in College Station in SEC play. Are you ready for this? Because I didn't realize it was this extreme.
Hit me.
2 of 19 against Texas.
Class.
4 of 18 against Alabama. 7 of 22 against LSU. 4 of 24 against Oklahoma. 6 of 20 against Georgia. 6 of 20 against Arkansas. 5 of 30 against Tennessee. And you know what's wild about that? They won all but 2 of those games. So, I mean, that's the thing, right? If you're looking at this from Vanderbilt's standpoint, you're like, okay, one of the things we really struggle to do is allow teams to hit threes against us. Like, that's been a problem. But there is nothing to suggest that Texas A&M is going to be able to do that. So, for Vandy, it's like, all right, maybe wipe away a little bit of that, right? But on the other side of it, we know what A&M then is going to try to do. They're going to try to attack, and Vandy is allowing teams to shoot 58% from 2 in SEC play. That is the worst of any team in the league. And so you would have to believe, Max, this is one of those where it's just, Buzz Williams' game plan, attack, because we already know we talked about the size stuff with Vanderbilt and all that, but I think this is one where especially if you're looking at simplistic game plans, I don't know how it can get any simpler for A&M than drive the ball, try to attack this team at the rim, get offensive rebounds, and that is how you win this game. Easily put, in my opinion.
Yeah, you kind of touched on what I was going to go to next, and that was kind of where Vanderbilt's going to score their offense because they don't get to the free throw line. And Texas A&M's 2-point defense might be one of the more underrated aspects of any team in the SEC that we talk about. We really don't talk about their 2-point defense that much. I think it was, I'm drawing a blank. It was Bobby Hurley, Arizona State, talking about Kelvin Sampson's Houston defense the other day, and he was like, they have 6 guys out there. There's 8 arms coming from every angle. It's like they have 6 guys. That's kind of what it feels like when you try to get into the lane and just have an easy runner, floater, duck in, something like that against A&M. There are like 5 arms clawing, trying to make life difficult for you. Vanderbilt's going to have to – it's going to have to be like a Tyler Nickel game, Blake. It's going to have to be one of those outside games where Vandy kind of lights it up and pulls the defense out, and then you can see Byington kind of running his stuff. Interesting matchup here. Wow, this is fun.
Yeah, don't be surprised if Vandy, like you said earlier, forces some turnovers here. I think it makes it pretty interesting. Let's see if we're gonna make any upsets with our picks.
Looks like the spread here is gonna be single digits, probably somewhere around 7, 8 maybe. I'm gonna go Aggies here, but for the gambling audience, would not want to come anywhere close to a spread in this game.
No, I'm gonna go I'm gonna go A&M. Boy, I've really set up the Vanderbilt fans there. Holy cow! Maybe that's a bit of a slip. Maybe I'm wanting to pick Vanderbilt, but sorry, I'm gonna pick A&M. But I think why I said that way is I was gonna actually mention the same thing. Like I think this is one that I would not be surprised if Vanderbilt were to make this one of those games where, let's say, A&M's just not hitting shots, which, again, the percentages tell us that is certainly possible.
Yep.
And Vanderbilt comes out maybe knocking down some shots a little bit better percentage-wise than we've seen maybe from three. Maybe they come get some of those looks that like you said, a Tyler Nickel game where he's knocking down shots, and we know what Jason Edwards can do and all that. So, but really, I think the game's going to be won to me with guys like Henry Coleman, Solo Washington, and all those guys. Like I think that's the pairing that probably wins this game for Texas A&M, just based on, again, how you would expect them to approach their offensive game plan here with some of the things, maybe defensively for Vanderbilt. So, but we'll see. The Commodores force some turnovers, which A&M has been known to turn the ball over a bit. I think all bets are off there in terms of maybe a potential upset in this spot. All right, now let's go to this next one, Kentucky at Oklahoma, 8 p.m. Central Time on the SEC Network. Now, this is a fun one because we know Oklahoma fighting for an NCAA tournament bid at this point. And meanwhile, Kentucky is a team that seemingly is still going to be without Jackson Robinson and Lamont Butler. I think, Max, we'd probably both be surprised if they were back for this game based on all the reports out there. So we at least have a little more sample size, I guess, now in terms of how Kentucky plays without them, since we have not seen those guys for several games here. And as I said, Oklahoma trying to play its way into the NCAA tournament right now, getting a big win over Mississippi State to snap that 5-game losing streak that they had previously. And maybe this is another opportunity. If you're Oklahoma, you just win this one, all of a sudden you go to 5-10 in the SEC. We talked about the 3 non-conference wins, doing a lot of work for them. This would be another big one for the Sooners if they can get another home win here.
Points.
Yeah, points. We just do the same score. Would it surprise anyone if they had the same score here? 93-87, just like the Mississippi State game. That sounds about right to me.
This one is going to be, if you're not even a fan of either of these two teams, you're just watching our predictions, watch this game. For the love of God, please watch this game. This is going to be so fun. Two teams that just can absolutely light it up from three. I think that, let's see here. Yeah, Kentucky and Oklahoma's defense, both in the bottom 3 of the league. And Oklahoma's offense does not rank too well on the analytics because they've had some tough games and some tough stretches. But you see there in that Saturday game, you see in the Vanderbilt game to start the month, when Oklahoma is hitting their shots, when they're clicking, when Fears is playing well, they're an 80, 90-point team when they're clicking. I'm going to be really interested to see Jeremiah Fears and his assist to turnover ratio. Blake, he had the best game of his probably his whole season from a distributing standpoint with a 10 assist game last time out. This is a Kentucky team that does not force turnovers. Blake, Fears should be able to kind of operate as he would like to.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing to me. And, like you said, I think points will be there. There'll be plenty of points in this game. I would expect that based on these two teams. I guess we always ask this question, and I feel like our answer is always Amari Williams. But whose game is this for Kentucky? Like, who's the, oh, man, it's that guy's game in this one? Because I think there are a couple different answers you could go with here for this particular matchup against this Oklahoma team.
I was going to say Amari Williams because I'm just thinking right now when when he does that, like, I'm just going to put my shoulder through your chest and just back you down, he's going to be able to do that every possession if he wants to. He's going to have the physical advantage on any of Oklahoma's bigs, no matter who it is.
Again, I think those are it's Amari Williams, Andrew Carr. I'm like one of those guys probably just based on some of the matchups in the front court. But I also, we're just now bringing this up, but I think this is like the one where we talked about Otega Oweh all season long, and we're like, man, look at the consistency this guy's had. And now he comes off of his worst game of the season, and he gets his revenge game against his old team. And I'm like, I can't think of like a better Otega Oweh game than this right here, with all things considered. Coming off of, again, he was in foul trouble against Alabama, only scored 2 points. Just a frustrating night for him in Tuscaloosa. Now it's like, all right, my bounce back game comes on the road against my former team, and I know my team is still shorthanded here, And the way his skill set works, like you feel like he is someone who can exploit some of those things, from Oklahoma. I mean, from a defensive standpoint. So I think that's what I'm very interested to see. Like, we always say sometimes we these are overblown, right? Like it's just a game against your former team and all that. But really, if you're looking at it from Kentucky's standpoint, we could say this about a lot of games, but especially this one, I think it's like they have to get Owe going early, and the numbers suggest that he will bounce back in a big way here, just based on the fact that that last game was a complete outlier. And when I look at the way he's going to match up against these teams, like you said, this could be a big Jeremiah Fears game. We talk about the guys who could go off for Oklahoma. Always going to play just as big a role offensively as his defensively here, and I think it's kind of one of those games where I look at the different matchups, and I feel like he is definitely the guy that you're circling here, saying, all right, Kentucky's going to win this game. He's probably going to finish with 20 or more in doing so.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better answer than Amari Williams, because when you look at Oklahoma defensively, their worst attribute or their worst category is putting teams on the line. They foul a lot.
Yep.
And while they do get to the line more than Kentucky does a much better job at limiting fouls defensively. So who is Kentucky's number one guy in free throws? Owe. So he could have a night just getting to the line and just getting some easy offense, where a lot of these possessions are probably going to end in 3-pointers. It could be the free throw line that is swayed heavily in Kentucky's favor by guys like Owe, Amari Williams, being ultra aggressive, trying to get to the rim, when Oklahoma really does not have any rim protection, 15th in the league in 2-point percentage defense. Kentucky should be able to get what they want, or 14th, excuse me, not 15th. Kentucky should be able to get what they want inside. Like,
yeah, Oklahoma 287th now nationally. I was trying to see where they had kind of fell to in the numbers and fouls per game. So 18.2 fouls per contest. We always kind of talk about Auburn as being the team that fouls the most. Like statistically, Oklahoma fouls a little bit more than Auburn does. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that I think is kind of interesting when you look at this particular matchup. I mean, look, elsewhere, again, I feel like this is just one where, I mean, I just don't, we always say it, right? It's just the unpredictability with Kentucky, and you just don't really know, especially on the road. Like, that is the difference here, where you look at the road games they played recently, and it's like, yes, they won at Tennessee. After that, they lost by 14 at Ole Miss, 4 at Texas, 13 in Alabama. So I don't know. I mean, you don't really know, because this one's on the road. Oklahoma's been hit or miss at times, but they have played better at home. So I'm glad you get to go first on the picks, Max.
They lost that game at Texas, but I came away from that game with the feeling like they could have won that. They were right there. That one stung a little bit for the Cats fans. So I said, I'm not doubting the Cats anymore. About 2 weeks ago, I said, I'm not doing it. I am not putting myself in that position. They have burned me once, twice, thrice, whatever 4 is. They burned me. You name the number, they burned me this year. And so I tried to go against the grain, tried to pick the Cats as a 10-point underdog in Tuscaloosa. Said, I'm not getting burned. It didn't work out. The mojo wasn't there. So Cats fans, the plan is being scrapped. It didn't work. The Cats need me to pick against them.
They do. They need you to down.
That's just what's going on this year. So, hey, I got to do what I got to do. I'll go Sooners.
Okay. Well, that's your plan. My plan is that I still need to see more from Oklahoma rather than just the one game that they had against Mississippi State, because they just were not playing well prior to that at all. And I know Kentucky has been so up and down, but I'm like, I kind of feel like they're due on one of these road games. And so I'm gonna pick Kentucky to win here. I just feel like this is one. I feel like this is the away game. Like, this is the one where maybe we're looking up and saying, all right, he was the difference. This is why Kentucky won. Yes, we know they're shorthanded, but you've got to wonder too, they're getting a little more comfortable, in these new rotations where you've had these guys missing for several games now. So you get a little bit more of that experience each time. And I wonder if maybe that's the difference here, because I want to see more from Oklahoma. I know they just got the big win, but I want to see them put together back-to-back type games like that, because I don't think we've really seen that in SEC play so far this year. So I want to see if they can do it. I'm going to pick the Cats in this spot.
Nice.
All right. Texas at Arkansas. Speaking of bubble games, 8
Woo.
p.m. Central Time, ESPN2. This is a big one at Bud Walton Arena. Some may even say that winning, you're in for now, losing, you may be out for now. We'll find out when it comes to these two teams. But I'm telling you, Max, I think this is one that they played on February 5th, 3 weeks ago now. But I think this is one, too, where, for Texas, all of a sudden that motivation level way higher now that they come off that loss to South Carolina. How does Texas respond to kind of being ridiculed, right, by some people out there for losing the team that 0-13, which we said there's really no shame in that, just because South Carolina was a team that won how many times almost at home to that point. But how they lost, you would want Texas probably, if you're a Texas fan, to come out a little pissed off here. And meanwhile, Arkansas, as you've said many times, they're playing like a legitimate top 25 team right now. Scrap the record at this point. They're playing so well. Coming off the big win against Missouri, now they get to stay in the friendly confines of Bud Walton for this big matchup against Texas. And yeah, this one's going to really determine a lot when it comes to this bubble picture.
Yeah, let's hope that it's not a repeat of the first matchup where we saw 62 free throws and basically Texas's entire starting lineup with 4 fouls. Trey Johnson, Kaluma, Jordan Pope, and Tremont Mark all had 4 fouls. Adu Thero fouled out. Big Z, Carter Knox had 4 fouls. Billy Richmond had 4 fouls in 9 minutes. It was just brutal. Yeah. So
I forgot about
hope
that.
it's a little bit cleaner. However, with that we joke. With that being said, though, Arkansas won the ugly game at Texas, right? If this thing is ugly, if it's slow, there's a lot of fouls, and the majority of points or the majority of the consistent offense is coming from the free throw line, we've already seen Arkansas win that game. So that's a little thing in the back pocket there. Now at home. So, okay, we've already played this team. We know we can beat them physically. However, this is a Texas team that they just so happen to have an NBA player in college right now and one of the best players, and he can go off for 30. You got a guy in Kaluma that can go off for 30. Tremont Mark. So we say this, the thing with Texas that's always tough to handicap, if you want to call that, tough to predict, is they got those individual guys that can just completely burn your entire pregame game plan. Okay, this guy's going off tonight. We got to scrap what we were doing.
I think, to me, Arkansas's defense is the big key to this game, like you said, because Texas does have a guy that can completely burn you in Trey Johnson. He could just go off at any time. And I think we've said that so many times this year, and that's probably what can be frustrating for Texas fans, too, as they see this team is sitting here on the bubble, knowing that you have a guy like this who, quite frankly, in the right situation, like you can win a couple games in the NCAA tournament with a guy like Trey Johnson, and the combination of a Tremont Mark, Kaluma, and all these other guys, too. So it's like, if they don't get there, if they were to not make the tournament, that's where the frustration really sets in, I think, just because he is so good. And from that standpoint, to me, we've said it all season. Like, everybody's certainly focused on the Arkansas record, but defensively, they have been pretty rock solid. We've mentioned our frustrations with the offense a lot, but when you look at kind of the defensive numbers, we've said it. I know Missouri put up 85, right? But still, I think that's just something where Missouri's just that good offensively. And against some of these upper tier offensive teams, you're probably going to give up points, like in Alabama too, right? But you look at some of these other games, look at the defensive performance they put on in Lexington against Kentucky the first time around. Again, it was a free throw shooting contest, but still, holding Texas to 70, not a bad thing. They hold LSU to 58. They go on the road. They lose to A&M, but A&M only scored 69. Auburn only scored 67. So I think, to me, that's where the defense comes in here, and that's where, for Texas, right? Texas has won some road games, but they've also, as we just saw, lost a game by 15 on the road against a team that was previously, 0-13 in the league. So do you trust Texas coming back on the road now, 5 days later, after they've heard all about this, how they were the ones that lost to South Carolina in this spot against an Arkansas team that knows it has to win? There's no better setup for Arkansas here than getting a game against another bubble team and getting it in your own arena when you're playing as well as you've been playing. So do you trust Texas to go in that spot and be able to kind of, put Arkansas on its heels? That's where I think, I don't know what the spread's going to be, but I think Arkansas, it just feels like a good spot to me, Max, for Arkansas.
I think you're going to see Arkansas as like a minus 200 favorite. A nice like parlay piece probably is what they would be, probably -5, -6. Just Blake, look at Texas's last 5 games, 4 games. The defense hasn't been there, and as good as they are at making tough shots, it's hard to make tough shots every possession for 40 minutes. And just with the way Arkansas, I'm just going to go ahead and get to my pick. I'm picking Arkansas here. I think we saw the ugly matchup in the first one at Texas. The Moody Center is a really hard place to play. Now in Bud Walton, with Arkansas playing as good as they're playing, I got to pick them.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Texas wins at South Carolina, I'm probably giving more thought to this, but like this team just lost by 15, and I don't think they're going to play that bad again. I don't, but I also want to credit South Carolina for the win there. But I just you can't pick against Arkansas in the spot, in my opinion, just based on the way that team's been trending, and we just saw Texas knowing that their season's kind of on the line here, and they go and just sort of lay a complete egg in Columbia. So I think that's tough to pick that team. So there you go. There are thoughts on the Wednesday night action in SEC basketball. Quickly, let's tell you about our friends at BracketBids. Enter into that free pick'em contest or start an auction draft league with your friends, family, or coworkers. Everyone starts with the same bidding dollars, but it's up to you to outwit and outbid your league mates to secure the teams you think will go the distance. Choose from the multiple scoring models, including upset bonuses to reward the bold picks. Track your teams with live in-game scoring and watch the standings shift in real time. The further your teams advance, the higher you climb the league standings. That's how it works. For league play, use that promo code SE16 for 40% off. SE16 for 40% off. Download the BracketBids app today or visit them at bracketbids.com. We appreciate you guys watching. We'll have reaction, probably some on Wednesday night, others on Thursday morning to these Wednesday night games. So, yeah, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Appreciate you watching. We'll talk to you soon. Southeastern 16.